Make sure you guys are okay before.
Is my crown crooked?
No, no.
Oh gosh, my whole leg out that door. I couldn't afford whole pants. Only.
All right, lady. This your show.
You know I forgot, right?
I don't know what we was doing.
Ooh, welcome back to Sam and Jen Got Divorced. This is a podcast about bouncing back from divorce. Our marriage didn't work, but maybe our podcast will. This is Sam. I'm Jen. We were married at one point, and now we're not. Today, we are super excited to have a special, extra special guest host in the house. She is usually behind the camera on the other side. You've probably seen her once. She made an appearance once, but she's usually on that side making things look good and sound good for us. Today, she's on the couch, and we are so happy to have Shireen Simon, who brings the raw, brings the real, asks the deep, and goes even deeper. I have been looking forward to this one. I'm very happy to be here. Shireen, thank you so much for agreeing to be present with both of us. You know, you've done the unplugged, but to be here sitting where you are to have this conversation. Very grateful.
Thank you for the pressure.
You're welcome.
Yes. There's a reason they keep me behind the scenes.
And there's a reason why you're here. So, and y'all will see it very, very soon. So we'll get into it. We'll jump in. I would love for you to say a few things. This has been our space. You've made it home for us since we started our podcast almost a year ago now. Mm-hmm. And you've become like our family. So this is like our living room.
Thank you for trusting me to help you produce your show, but even bring me in the front of the camera to just help the audience understand your journey to a degree, right? What you're doing takes courage, right? It takes a lot from both of you. And I'm sitting back there listening and just really trying to pay attention to both of you and what you might be feeling just based off of what you share, and also what you don't share. And I know it cannot be easy for either of you. Yeah. So I know people don't always understand it. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, sorry, because I've had people ask me about your show as well. I do show people your show. I talk about you guys. Wait till I start talking about you on Insta. But one, it's a juicy show for those that want to like tune in, but for those that are seeking maybe guidance, there's a lot of people actually going through what you're going through. So you're not the first, you're not the last. But speaking about it is just a whole other thing. Yeah. So thank you both. Yeah. All right, so let's get into it. So we are going to be talking about grieving a divorce. I actually have a question for Jen first, because I feel like you might have actually been grieving before the separation. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, definitely. I was grieving for most of our marriage, grieving what I thought the marriage was going to be, what it was supposed to be, what I had set up for it to be. I, in my opinion, did everything right. And so my right was to have a great marriage. And when it was very apparent that it wasn't going to turn out according to my fantasies, I did start grieving. I had to start letting go. And so it started very early, you know, when we started encountering arguments or intense, what did you call it again? Intense conflict or something?
Intense fellowship.
We started encountering intense fellowship in ways that I never anticipated and didn't have the tools at the time to deal with. So I had to start letting go and embracing what was accepting what was, and you know, yeah, mourning what could never be because of what was. And that doesn't mean it could never be a happy marriage. It just means that it wasn't going to progress in the ways that I had anticipated, right? And so now there would have to be recovery, there would have to be, repair, there would have to be rehabilitation for the wounds that were present that I just didn't plan for, right? And so we start planting seeds, those seeds are going to grow. And in my mind, I was like, I don't want to plant the seeds of, passive aggressiveness or silent treatment or, criticism or, I didn't want to have those seeds planted in my marriage garden. But now they were there and they either needed to be uprooted, or cut out, figure out how to navigate around them, plant seeds over them. Like, it was a lot.
Did you recognize when your grieving started?
Oh, it was the day after I got married.
Well, we've spoken about that before.
Absolutely.
Whether, I don't know if the episode has been released as yet, but
yeah,
even going through the year, were there other moments where you could really feel that you were grieving?
At the time, I wouldn't have called it grieving. Now I can look back and recognize it as grief. I know a lot more about grief now, and it's spaghetti-like nature. It's it's entangled, it's up and down, it's back and forth, as opposed to, I think before I would have tried to identify the stages of grief, like, oh, I'm bargaining, or I'm depressed, or I'm angry, and I would have tried to see it in more of a linear way. But no, that's not what happens. It comes in waves. It it happens unexpectedly. It's sneaky. Sometimes, it's not, you're sad, but you're not necessarily crying. Maybe you're self-sabotaging at work. You know what I mean? Like, you're angry, but maybe you're not lashing out, yelling and screaming or whatever, but you are, I don't know, you're shopping, spending a lot of money or whatever. Like, there's different behaviors that are triggered by grief. And sometimes it's just very, very unexpected, surprising, and confusing. Confusing.
I will turn to Sam now, because I also think that you may have been going through a different type of grief, right? Because at some point, you realize that you got to tell Jen what's going on. So is there moments of grief, like with yourself, when you're kind of like contemplating how to tell her what's going on, and then potential grief of where the relationship could go?
It was a little bit different than that. I think I also, during the marriage, was grieving before we got separated. I had no plans necessarily ever to tell Jen. My plan was for God to magically fix me, and then maybe 50 years down the road to be like, hey, remember that first year of marriage? Yeah, all kinds of craziness was happening. The reason that I told Jen was because I had stayed out all night, and then I came back in the morning, and then whereas other situations had come and I'd lied about them, I just didn't have any lies left in me at that moment. So it wasn't something that I was building up to. I wasn't planning. I wasn't planning to one day have a giant reveal. But the grief that I was experiencing was twofold. Like Genevieve, the marriage was not what I expected. And the twofold was, what I was getting wasn't what I expected for sure, but what I was giving was also not what I expected. And I was saddened and depressed by that, by being privy to my own failure as a husband, even in ways that Genevieve wasn't explicitly privy to.
Yeah. When I think of that period of grieving, it was palpable, it was evident, it was present, but it was different from the grief that I experienced after we separated, and even after the divorce. So we were separated for years, before we signed those papers, before I filed the papers. And there were 3 distinct types of grieving during that time: in the marriage, in the separation, in the limbo period, and then after the final, filing of the paper, receiving of the divorce certificate. There was another level of grief that was present. I don't think I actually leaned into full grieving until it was like COVID, when I wasn't doing it. I didn't have any more distractions. I wasn't, up and down trying to figure out what degree I'm going to get next, or what job I'm going to figure out, what business I'm going to start. And I had moved out of the country, and I didn't have brunches to go to and church to get dressed for, and, movie nights to go out with my girlfriends. Like, I didn't have anything. I didn't know anybody, and I was alone, and it was just me, God, my feelings, and the furniture.
That's when they say the healing really
And
begins, right?
Yeah.
Those quiet
It
moments.
really, and that was a year later. That was a year after the divorce itself. And I leaned into grieving on a different level during that time. That was probably the hardest time, to confront all of the thoughts with no filter, with no temper, right? Because distractions, TV, movies, this, that, they're all, sort of like, they're filters that, the grief gets to go through, and by the time it hits you, it's not really that bad. It's but there was nothing to temper the waves of grief, and I remember I spiraled, I cried, I was trying to figure, and it was like, again, not linear. It was up and down. One day I was like, I hate my life, and the next day I was like, oh my God, I get to live out here, and it's wonderful. And yeah, there were a lot of ups and downs, a lot of tears, a lot of frustration, but yeah. Whew.
So if you don't mind, approximately how old were you? Because I kind of want people to understand that processing at that age looks different than processing at the age that we're at now. So can we get a range of your age for both of you?
Yeah, I was in my early 30s.
Okay.
Okay. So now I'm in my early 40s.
Okay, Sylvia.
I was in my late.
Don't tell anybody though. I just turned 34.
I was in my late 20s. Now I'm in my late 30s.
You've also had happy moments, right? In your marriage. And sometimes grieving is grieving those happy moments, not just grieving the moments that did not happen, but when you look back at those happy moments, do you feel like you were grieving some happy moments, like things that, I don't know if that question makes sense, but I just feel like I would just kind of want to acknowledge that throughout the year, there would have been happy moments. So if I think about when someone loses their job and they really liked what they did, they would have grieved the fact that this was a great job, right? Even though maybe the man wasn't paying them enough or whatever the situation. So if I think of that analogy, I would think it might be similar in your marriage. There might have been happy moments that you were grieving, but I don't really think we talk about that as much. Thoughts? We'll go to Sam first, maybe.
Okay, yeah, and I imagine my answer is different than Genevieve's, because Genevieve was the one who spearheaded the initiation of the divorce, as she so eloquently puts it. And because, I was, like, while Genevieve wasn't perfect, I was definitely, objectively and subjectively, the toxic, harmful catalyst towards why we got divorced. Like, either all or almost all of the blame is on me. So yeah, I think that looking back, and at the time, even I felt this to a degree, like, whereas maybe I thought Genevieve was perfect in some form, maybe when I was at the heights of proposing and courting, by the time we were getting separated and then divorced, I probably had her at like an 8.2 or 8.5. and in my worst moments, I focused on that 1.5 and how bad it was. But if I was to step back and look objectively, I still think the levels of alignment and the level of respect that I had for her was pretty high. So there's lots of happy moments, lots of things where the Genevieve did or that we did together that were beautiful or fun or respect worthy. We've talked in previous podcast episodes about my birthday and how Genevieve made a basket for me and also cooked for me. The basket may have passed me by. I didn't really register that, but the food did. The food did, especially because and Genevieve knew that was something that I liked that wasn't necessarily something that she loved to do, right? But she did it. She was painstaking and did it and tasted good, and I really felt loved and respected by that, right? Her putting herself out. Something else, like she knew that I liked natural black hair in all its styles. Afro was near the top of my list. And I remember her telling me, like, my hair, she had lots of hair, but she's like, my hair doesn't go in an afro, right? I'm like, all right, cool, I accepted that. And then one day I came home and she had done her hair in an afro, like she had figured it out. So like moments like that, abound. And when I think of grieving, this is not exactly what you asked, but Genevieve used to like ask me from time to time. She used to look at me and ask me like, are you happy with me? And I would reassure her, of course, but my actions didn't show that. And something that I still occasionally grieve about is that, that basically the way that I lived told her that I wasn't happy with her, whereas that wasn't the objective truth. The objective truth was, yes, there was moments of unhappiness, but I thought she was holistically beautiful for the most of the time that we were married.
That's beautiful. Holistically beautiful. That's such a beautiful statement.
Yeah. And I think I can say, something similar. When it was bad, it was bad. Mm-hmm. But the reason why we got to the bad was because we had good, right? We got there because so many good things happened, and we decided to move forward and spend our lives together. I think when it comes to grieving post-divorce, there's certainly a measure of mourning the promise that those good times would happen and continue. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when I looked back, there were a lot of moments of hope in being able to create or curate the life that we wanted. And there was a lot of effort. Even when there were times of complete despair or despondency, there was still effort. It was like, okay, we can recover from this. We can
Was that a question? Was that something you were saying to yourself, or is that something you guys were saying to each other?
Oh no, definitely to myself. Yeah. I think to Samuel, I would have presented very harsh.
You would have, yes.
Because I was hurt. I was really hurt, and my default hurt is like, you're not getting past anywhere. I'm in protection mode, so I wouldn't have been vulnerable with him about like what was going on internally. But internally I was wrestling with like how to figure out how to make this better or work or whatever. And I was all in up until that fateful night. But I think the revelation was beyond anything I could have understood, thought of, dreamed of, anything. And then it was beyond my capacity. Like, I was already feeling hopeless. I don't know what to do with this man, this marriage. I'm out of sorts here. I don't have what it takes. Right? There's so much difficulty. He's going through so much. I can't show up the way that I think I'm supposed to. And then now this, That's like you told me to carry 60 pounds. I am struggling. I can carry these 60 pounds 2 feet. And now you're trying to give me another 60 pounds? I'm going to die.
Wouldn't you have thought that the now this was, oh, okay, now I see why it's been so long?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of things made sense.
Mhm.
For sure. A lot of things made sense. For me, I think I released a lot of blame, like self-blame, in that moment. But I also took on a lot of I don't know, overwhelm, stress, not confusion, what's the word? Like inadequacy. I don't even know what word to use.
I
It was
think
just
that-
like, I can't. Like, I wanted to
I was-
show up and be a good wife. I wanted to be a whole wife coach. I was like, I got to get my reps in. I got to get my experience in. So eventually I can be a wife coach and help everybody be a good wife and have good marriages. I've always loved marriage. It's really weird. I remember at one point I didn't want to get married, but I actually like marriage. I think marriage is a beautiful thing when we do it well. And so, yeah, it was, it was a part of me, but I did feel like I was failing in marriage. Like I couldn't or wouldn't be the wife that I should be, or that Samuel wanted and needed me to be. And that was already hard. It was already difficult to deal with that and to figure out ways to mitigate against that. Like, okay, we have to have conversations about this because we're going to have to figure out how to live together for the rest of our lives. And I had hoped that we could work it out. I think that was just high level. It didn't translate into my behavior, to my actions. And I didn't have the resources internally or externally that I needed at the time. Like, I've seen people navigate their relationships and difficulty and recover and so on and do it well. But I was at a loss. Like, yeah. Like, it was the first time I was hearing about any of this. I was like, what is, I don't have a point of reference. It wasn't in my scope of vision, understanding of the real world. It's like somebody telling me that an alien was living next to me for the last 30 years. Like, that I have zero concept. And so it was like a blind side, and then it was like a painful thing. And then it was, whoa, it was overwhelming.
Sam, I don't know if we gave you an opportunity to answer the question, what did grief look like for you after the divorce?
So my grief journey, the hardest moments of grieving for me were during the separation. Because something, like, while I was holding on to the hope and possibility of us getting back together, that's what I was praying for. That's what I was working towards. Part of me just had the sense of despair, thinking that it probably wouldn't happen, and then it was my fault. Realizing that it was my fault. So that was the greatest moments of grief. Is like, wow, I screwed up my marriage, and it's over. And we were separated, as Genevieve mentioned, for 2 years roughly before she filed the divorce papers, and those were the hardest 2 years for sure. Post divorce, like, my approach changed. I was like, all right, I guess she's said she's out, she's over. I'm gonna do my thing. And I was, I was just living life and trying to have fun, trying to tune out. But during those years of separation, like, I did programming and support and counseling, and some of that stuff helped process the grief. But really, all that worked was time. Like, post-divorce, I didn't do anything healthy for years. For at least 3 years. I didn't do any positive grief recovery. I didn't apply any principles or anything like that. But because I had done some work when I was separated and time just passed, I think that was really what helped the most. Yeah. Was the passage of time, in addition to whatever tools I had used before that felt like they weren't really working, but I think looking back, they helped significantly.
Sometimes it does take time for us to even see it, right? You do have to kind of look back. It's like you're building something or you're growing. You don't feel like you're growing.
Right.
And you look back and you're like, but I wouldn't even do that the same. Like, I have grown, right? Yeah.
And I've grieved other things since. And that, like, from my perspective, you do whatever the people say to do, but all you need, time is the only ingredient that works. Like XYZ can help, and you can do everything. But then if you need another 2 weeks or another 2 days or another 2 months, you need another 2 weeks, 2 days, 2 months. It doesn't, like, right? It doesn't make a. That's not, I wouldn't say it doesn't make a difference, but you can't time box it. You can't be like, all right, I'm grieving for 2 weeks, and I'm doing this programming, and by the time of this grief course that I'm done, I will have grieved and I will move on. It doesn't work that way.
No.
Yeah.
I think grief is ongoing. It isn't. The nature of grief is. I want to say it's forever, because there will be moments that pop up that your brain will connect back to something you've missed, or something you're mourning, or something that may be unresolved, and you'll have a moment of grief, and you'll have to remind yourself, hey, here's where I am now. You know, these are all the things I have to be grateful for sure, but that doesn't negate the fact that you're grieving that thing or that possibility that you have to let go of, and you never know what you're going to have to let go of in the future now, right? Like, I remember having a moment of grief. This is last year, and I was going through a fertility journey, and I was seeking out just answers around my fertility and having children and so on. And the doctor and I had a conversation.
Thank you all for joining us today. Make sure, if you haven't, that you like, follow, share, subscribe. We'd love to have you, and we'll see you again soon.